cloud. So yeah, so tonight, thanks for coming through. So tonight we are doing VBS, a Dream Defrauded. It took me some time to get into the book, but once I got into it, got very upset as I was reading it. But yeah, managed to finish it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to your views. So it's the same format. Whoever is facilitating the session will start with opening, taking us through the essence of what the book is about. And then I'm going to give each of you a chance to share your thoughts. If you haven't read the book, it's okay. You will not be vilified. But if you have, you'll have your moments to take us through your thoughts of the book and or how you found it. And then from there, there'll be some leading questions, a couple of questions that I'll be asking as we go along. And yeah, and I mean, if you feel you want to contribute, even though you haven't read the book, please feel free to do so as well. So you're not being excluded. So what I'll do as part of the agenda is I will spend some few minutes taking through, for those of you who have not read the book, just sort of summarizing the book. So I'm not gonna do it through slides this time. I'll just narrate some of the things that I found interesting. And then I will constantly read out some of the excerpts from the book as we go along. So I should be 15 minutes, so give or take, but I'll try and move quicker. So, and then from there, who has read the book? Mali, you are next, right? Mr. Mulepo, you are next.
Yes, I've read most of it, not all of it. I think, like you said,
okay. No, that's
I'm also a bit angry.
Okay, great stuff. So I'm going to sort of as an opening and as a discussion I'll touch on five things. Yeah, 5 things about the book. So what I'll sort of work on is just to give a big sort of like a background of VBS, so that you have a sense of what this is about, what VBS is about. So that's the first thing. Then secondly, I would then talk about how the real protagonists came to be part of VBS, how they acquired VBS, and then number 3, I will then take you through what really transpired. I'm not gonna go through each and everything. I'll just sort of highlight some very few things that I think stood out. And then number 4, I will then talk about the end, sort of like the climax, and where are we now? Because this VBS is still a case that's still going. I think it's just started, and then I sort of also want to talk about the type of characters, the type of character that accused number 1 is, and sort of draw some analogies between his character, his traits, and others like him. So those are the 5 things that I'd like to sort of go through. But I think as a start, as a background to what VBS is. I mean, VBS is basically a vendor building society. So it started in 1982 as a building society. I mean, this was way back during apartheid years. I was less than 10 years during that time. 1982, it started as vendor building society, and then 10 years later, 1992, it then changed from vendor building society, and it was registered as a mutual bank in 1992. So it's quite interesting that all this happened prior to 1994, before democracy in in South Africa. And partly, you know, and when I looked at this, for me, it was during apartheid and during the homelands. So it was part of, it was in what was then called the Republic of Venda as a homeland. And how apartheid worked was in homelands, most of the lands in those homelands, most of the lands were under the administration of the kings. So people could not own a piece of land. And as a result, I think you still find it even today. I mean, there was a case with the Zulu king and the tribal land. So that belonged to the king. So 1992, it registered as a mutual bank. The purpose of the bank really was to help poor people to bank, but also people who wanted mortgage loans. So you'll be allocated a piece of land and you wanted to build a house and you don't have money. So you would then go to the traditional banks would refuse to give you a loan because in essence, you did not own the piece of land. It was part of a communal land owned by the king. So the big banks at the time refused to give people mortgages. So VBS saw a gap and they decided that they're going to specialize in giving people mortgages in communal land, even though they stayed in communal land, because they understood the challenges. So that's the gap that they identified, and that's how the bank came about. And the two primary revenue generators where you have small depositors. So you had normal ordinary people who were depositing money into the bank, but you also had stokvels. Stokvel people would organize themselves as stokvels, and then they would deposit money into the bank. And I mean, if you know about the stokvel industry in South Africa, it's about 49 billion as an industry, about 50 billion as an industry in South Africa. And it comprises of about 11.5 million people. And if South Africa is like 60 million people, you roughly have about 25% of the people contributing towards stokvels. So 12 million is quite a lot of people. So, and I would assume that back then, VBS had quite a substantial number of stokvels going in there. But I mean, for me, what stood out when I discovered this was, I mean, all this, the vision of owning a bank before 1994, a black bank for that matter, before 1994, I found that to be quite inspiring and quite forward-thinking and forward-looking. So it was very visionary of the founders at the time to say, let's start our own bank, especially during apartheid. I mean, black banks are struggling in democracy, but these guys had the foresight to start a bank before 1994. So I found it to be quite interesting. So I did some bit of research also. I looked at some of the banks that have failed, in mutual banks and banks that have failed in South Africa. So there are about 30 banks that failed, that are known to have failed in South Africa. So you'd have obviously African Bank, 1995, it failed. The reason was bad management and liquidity problems. And then you had Regal Bank, quite popular. I think I was at varsity when this one went under. Regal Bank, quite scandalous. Levinson was the CEO, and it was just misappropriation of money and falsification of financials, ultimately resulting in Regal Bank being liquidated. And the guy Jeff Levinson was sentenced to about 14 years. I think he's still in jail even now, but he should be coming out next year. So he was sentenced to 14 years. And then there was Sambo Bank, also quite popular, 2002, also bad management, liquidity issues. And then African Bank again in 2014, liquidity issues, bad management. And then there was Pretoria Bank, 1991, bad management, Alpha Bank, 1990, fraud and bad management. So if you look at the history of banks that have gone under, it's pretty much the same reasons: bad management, and as a result, running out of money. Bad management, running out of money. So that's basically what happened with most of the banks. So now obviously recently, 2018, VBS, and the reason is bad management and liquidity problems. So that's as a background. Number two, how did now these new guys, the owners, came to acquire VBS? So you have Chifiwa Matodzi and Manda Palandwa, right? I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Manda Palandwa and Chifiwa Matodzi. So Chifiwa is a CA, he's a general accountant, and him and Manda formed a company called Brilliant Telecommunication, or in short, Brilliant Tel. And Chifiwa was then the CFO, and then Manda was the CEO. And these guys are buddies. They went to Rao together. They studied together, and later on they became friends and very close, and also family friends. So Chifiwa sort of heard that the VBS has got some financial problems and they need to raise money. So and this was in the 2014. So VBS started in 1982. 1992 registered as a mutual bank, and it was operating. Everything was okay. Of course, you're targeting poor people. At some point, you're going to have liquidity problems. So they decided in 2014, we want to start raising funds. So what do? They recapitalize the business. So in other words, they are asking their shareholders to contribute money. So they create share allocation, and they say, we're making available X amount of shares because we're trying to raise X amount of money. And there was 26% that was available. And Brilliant Tel, which is Chifiwa and Matodzi, decided, we have to go into this thing. So since Manda said, okay, Chifiwa, since you spotted the opportunity, you run with it, you negotiate, and then you will come and update us into how is it going. So Chifiwa goes, but before he even goes for VBS, Manda started complaining about Chifiwa. Chifiwa, when the money starts coming into the business, he becomes this guy who's now arrogant. The true colors start to come out. I mean, on page 11, he says Palandwa, which is Chifiwa's partner, saw his friend change in those early days. We're both brothers. Our families were tied. He was a very good guy until there was more money coming in. Then he started showing his colors, greed, doing things I did not agree with. He would do some funny things long before VBS. It just kept getting worse. So here's Chifiwa. Money starts coming in under Brilliant Tel. So Brilliant Tel is a tech company. They specialize in doing government work. So it's doing well. Money is coming in. Chifiwa starts to show his true colors. But anyway, so he negotiates a stake in VBS. And because there's issues between Chifiwa and Manda starts to pull off and say, you know what, you run with it. Chifiwa then starts negotiating with the king, Mpefu, the vendor king. He starts getting close to the vendor king. He starts using the vendor king's connections because remember, mutual bank is owned by the depositors, right? So if at the beginning of the bank, I put in money there, I have a share, I'm a shareholder in the bank. But because the king has got so much power and Chifiwa is bribing the king, is giving the king some money, and obviously the king, then they become very close, and the king influences other people. I wouldn't want to say subjects, but he manages to influence other people to support Chifiwa. So Chifiwa then they buy 26%. They manage to raise 26%, and they buy 26% of VBS. But for some reason, Chifiwa manages to negotiate and buy other shareholders' interests until he gets to owning 51% of VBS. So, and he does all this not with Brilliant Tel. He does all this. He registers a new company called Vele Investments. And Vele Investments is the one that buys shares into VBS. And Chifiwa is the chairperson of Vele Investments. And they buy 51%. So he owns Vele Investments. So by default, he also owns VBS because he's got 51% shareholding. And the other shareholders in VBS is PIC, Public Investment Commissioners, which is a public entity of the government. It looks after the pension funds of government employees. So it administers the pension funds of government employees. And part of what PIC also do is they invest in other businesses, so that as they make money, the kitty or the pension fund of government employees also increases. So you have Vela Investments that owns 51% of VBS. The owner of Vela Investments is Chifiwa. Manda is upset. He doesn't want to get involved in the whole thing because he's not happy with how Chifiwa runs things. And then, so Chifiwa takes charge now. He takes charge of the bank. Now we're getting to number 3, right? He takes charge of the bank. So obviously with new management, with new shareholding, they want to do things their own way. So he now needs to sort of form a team, bring his own team. So he gets Andile Ramavunga, which I know personally. He gets Andile Ramavunga to come in. Also from Rau, now it's the University of Johannesburg, but before that it was Rand Afrikaanse Universiteit. So because they all went to Rau, right? And at the time, in the early 90s, 94s, very, very few Black students in those type of institutions. So he goes to Rau, he gets Andile Ramavunga. They know each other from university days. Andile comes, and Andile is going to be the CEO of VBS. Chifiwa is the chairperson. Andile is the CEO. And then there's a white guy called Philip Trotter. He's a CFO. And then you also have other treasury manager and all those things. So Chifiwa gets his team, his exco team that he wants. So he assembles his exco team that he wants. But what he also does is he starts, paying these guys some monies, extra from Vela Investment. So he starts paying Andile extra salary, 50,000 every month, right? And that's how Chifiwa works. So in order for him to have you on his side, he bribes you, he gives you some money. So there's some monies that Andile gets over and above his salary, and those monies are not even documented in a contract, nothing. It's just side payments. So he captures the exco team, right? Now there's a board, so they overhaul the board. So they bring new board members. And as part of their investment in VBS, PIC, all right, they've got about 16%. They send 2 board members to represent. So these are 2 employees of PIC, which they second to VBS to be on the board so that they can look after the shareholding of PIC. Whatever decision that is taken by the board, they need to make sure that PIC is well represented in the board. So Chifiwa is done capturing the exco team. It is exco team, executive team, that's his. Now he starts working on the board. He starts bribing the 2 officials from PIC. They get extra. And how he does it is it starts as innocent. So you'll get a car finance and you'll get a mortgage loan. And the terms and conditions, even if you don't pay, it's okay. And you also get access to a credit card. So these 2 officials of employees of PIC are now captured. So they also get extra monies on the side. They have mortgage loans. They have all sorts of loans and benefits. They don't declare this to their bosses at PIC, so they keep quiet. The chairperson of the board also gets some money as well. So Chifiwa has captured the executive team. He's now captured the board. And on page 29, they say Chifiwa and the VBS CEO Andile Ramavunga hired old friends as consultants when they could, and related parties repeatedly received generous bonus loans. A patronage system was emerging with undeclared loans going to PIC's representatives and to buy their favor. And they also got second salaries that they did not declare. So he goes about, he captures the executive team, he captures the board. Now, and he uses this by taking money from the bank and he's paying these guys. Now he goes and he says, okay, there's an issue of the external auditor. So this external auditor obviously is going to come and audit our books and obviously sort of issue a report. He then says, I need to also get to this guy, Sipho Malaba. He's a partner at KPMG. So Sipho also, same thing. Remember, the banks are regulated by the Reserve Bank, South African Reserve Bank. And all the banks have to submit their financials to the Reserve Bank. And if there's anything wrong in those banks, the auditors must report in their audit report. They must report it to the Reserve Bank, and the Reserve Bank will then step in and see what's happening. And they even have the right to take over the bank. But because Chifiwa did not want to do that, he then starts also the same thing. He starts issuing mortgage bonds to Sipho Malaba, who's a KPMG partner, and obviously in favor, the auditor will then issue the audit reports in favor of VBS. Even though there's lots of shenanigans happening there, the external auditor is also captured. And it starts as innocently here, open a credit card facility, here is a loan, here's a mortgage bond. And if you're an auditor of a client, you can't also benefit transactionally from that. It's a conflict of interest, right? So as a way of mitigating this, they always say declare. So declare to your bosses, declare to for transparency's sake. Sipho Malaba also does not declare. So Chifiwa has captured the executive committee, has captured the board, he has captured the external auditors, right? And now there's all this money flowing out, people are being paid and everything. But the problem is there's no money coming in because they are just reliant on your normal depositors and what you call stock firms. So there's not enough money coming in. So in order to finance this patronage, okay, sorry. So in order to finance the patronage system, because it's a patronage system, you are paying people. So the question is, where do you get the money from, right? And the next question is, okay, we need to bring money coming in so that we can sustain this guys keeping quiet. And in that moment, these guys are buying Range Rovers, Porsche Panameras, they are buying helicopters and houses at Eagle Canyon, and they're traveling, buying clothes and everything. So they say, okay, where are we going to get the money? Municipalities, right? Venda, Limpopo, we start there. So we need to get municipalities to put money into the bank. Now, the problem, though, is municipalities are governed by MFMA, right? It's a Municipal Finance Management Act. And the act says that municipalities do not put their money in, they can only put their money in a registered bank, and they can only put their money in a bank that has got a good credit sovereign rating, right? So the problem with VBS is it's not a qualifying bank, it's a mutual bank. They don't have a banking license, so to speak, to get money from municipalities. But also they don't have good rating as well, right? So you then have a situation where they say, okay, we're gonna go after municipalities. What they do, they get influential people from Limpopo in the ANC to influence municipalities to put money into VBS. How do they get the municipalities to put money into VBS? Again, same patronage system, no problem. We'll pay bribes to the CFO of the municipality, the mayor, and sometimes even the speaker, right? They will also, if you put money into VBS, you'll get something in return. And I remember they took advantage. There was an event happening at the ranch. Ranch is sort of like a lodge, hotel, just before you get into Polokwane. And the municipality, top executives of municipalities in Limpopo were there. So this political influential guy called some of the VBS guys to say, come through, all the municipal managers and CFOs are here. So I want you guys to, I will put influence on them to move their funds from where they are into VBS. So they have a list of all the municipalities and they call them one by one into a separate room. So, and then they start telling them, you must move your funds from wherever it is into VBS, and we'll look after you, we'll take care of you, we'll give you something. And then obviously the the CFOs and the municipalities, they agree. They start pumping in money there. Vembe districts, 130 something million money, rents, 40 million, whatever. So they start pumping money into VBS. And as the money goes in, again, the patronage on the other side, right? People are being greased, spending continues, but obviously municipalities are pulling money in there. So it gets to a point where now, because when a municipality puts money into a bank, so they will say we are doing a 12 months investment, a fixed deposit for 12 months. So it means we're going to keep the money in there. We'll just get the interest, and maybe after 12 months, the investment matures, and then we get our money back. So as they do that, unbeknown to the municipalities, the guys are spending the money, right? The money depletes. Now there's rumors circling, and I think also before we get to that, it gets to a point where VBS, gives the 2016, former President Zuma gets found guilty of the Nkandla's issue, and he's ordered to pay 7.1 million, right? The big four banks don't want to charge him, again, same reason. Nkandla is in a communal land owned by the Zulu king. So he does not really own the land, so to speak. So we can't give him mortgage on that. Steps in VBS, gives the president 7.1 million mortgage, right? And from then on, VBS becomes this popular bank. People didn't know VBS, suddenly they know VBS. It becomes this popular bank, and people are starting to say, oh, okay, what's this bank? Oh, it's a black bank. Oh, nice, awesome. And it goes on. 2017, Andile gets anointed as the CEO of the year by APSIP. APSIP is Association of Black Securities Professionals. So they say Andile Ramavunga is the CEO of the year, and there's this big thing, market media around VBS, and you know what? This is the bank, a black bank. We need to support it. This is a black version of R&B, so to speak. And so it's this big thing. This is a year before VBS collapses, 2017. Now they run out of money again, right? As they run out of money, they say we need more money, right? Now they made 12 months investments are maturing, and they need money. And you have a situation where in 1 month, you have about 4 municipalities whose investments are maturing. And the total amount that needs to be paid out is about 300 and something million that needs to be paid out by VBS. The following month, there's also about 4 or 5 municipalities in Limpopo whose fixed deposits are maturing. That's about 400 and something million. So all in all, VBS has to pay about 800 million within 2 months. How much do they have in the kitty? They have only 6 million, right? So they don't have money. So they're chasing PRASA. PRASA is a Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa, another parastater. They're now graduating from municipalities to parastaters. So they chase PRASA. They want 1 billion from PRASA, right? And the acting CEO at the time says, no, we'll give you 1 billion. But there's a lady there, there's a white lady there. She's a chartered accountant. She says, no, we're not giving these guys 1 billion. Firstly, they are not a registered bank. Same reasons. Firstly, they're not a registered bank. Secondly, they don't have positive credit rating. Thirdly, their financials, on their financials, their assets are showing 1 billion. We can't give an entity that's got 1 billion in assets, give them another 1 billion loan. It's too risky. It's common sense, right? From an accounting perspective. So these 2 months, municipalities need their money. They need to pay salaries. They don't have money. In 2 months, VBS has to come up with at least 1 billion. They only have 6 million in the bank, right? And now they are pushing PRASA to give money. There's this back and forth between the acting CEO and this lady at PRASA. They want 1 billion, right? And it's at a time, 2018, Nasrec is happening, President Cyril Ramaphosa and NDZ, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, they're contesting for presidents of the ANC. So these guys, all along, the VBS guys, all along, they are saying, no, we know that NDZ is going to win, which is former President Zuma's ex-wife is going to win. And if she wins, it means, look, we looked after President Zuma. So his ex-wife will also look after us because we bailed the ex-husband out. So we are good to go. We can continue, we can sustain this relationship. Unbeknown, the unthinkable happens. President Cyril Ramaphosa wins. He wins, shock, they're all shocked. 2 months, they have to pay 800 million. They have 6 million in the bank. PRASA is dilly-dallying. President Cyril Ramaphosa wins. He appoints his own CEO at PRASA. The new CEO comes and says, no ways, VBS is not getting 1 million. Now VBS is stuck. They're looking at the end in the eye. And they say, okay, no, it's fine. We'll go to PIC. PIC has built us out before. Plus, we have our own 2 guys who have been greasing them. They can talk to Dan Machila, was the CEO of PIC, to put money in there. Again, Cyril's influence. They appointed a new person in the investment committee of PIC. They look at the application of VBS. They said, no ways, we're not funding this. And already there are rumors circulating. The vultures are flying around VBS because they can smell that something is not right here. So 2 months, if they don't pay out their monies, VBS is bankrupt. Second last, February 2018, 16 Valentine's Day. 2 days after Valentine's Day, 16 February 2018, VBS runs out of money, right? It was on a Sunday, they ran out of money. The municipalities have been calling day before, they have to pay salaries, money is not there. Their investment has matured 2 months ago. VBS has not paid out. They're calling these guys, Chifiwa, Andy, they're not answering their phones, right? And now there's rumors going, money is no longer coming in. Everybody's upset, right? Until the Reserve Bank steps in, February 2018, they put the whole bank under curation, right? And, City Press, City Press, it was declared on the 11th of March, 2018. City Press runs a huge headline, right? And that's it, it's the end. And I remember Andile was talking to one of his associates, and they were talking via WhatsApp. And in one of the messages, the guy says, I hear you received a call from the Register of Banks. It's over. And the other guy on the other side was like, yo, so sad, And now it's over. The Register of Bank under the Reserve Bank, they take over the bank, they take over VBS. All along, they're thinking there's still money, the whole thing is being mismanaged. When they get there, they get a shock of their life. There's no money, there's only 6 million left. All the things that they were showing in the financials were cooked books. It was not a true reflection. When they go there, there's no money, the whole thing is bankrupt. Blame game starts, they start fighting amongst each other, start blaming each other, the VBS team, EXCO, they start blaming each other. At some point, it even gets physical. Investigation starts, interrogation starts, threats, lies, people are getting charged. Philip Trotter, who's the CFO, he pleads guilty and he's been sentenced. He's already starting his sentence. Poor people, poor depositors in Venda, they start sleep queuing outside the banks, hoping that they will withdraw their money. They start even sleeping outside the banks. It's such a very poor thing to see. Other executives have been charged, they are out on bail. So yeah, and this all happens, mind you, this happens within a space of 5 years. I mean, they acquired VBS in 2015. In 2014, they acquired VBS. In 2018, VBS is declared bankrupt. And within a space of 5 years or so, right, they managed to collapse the bank that has been in existence for almost over 10 years. So lastly, I want to sort of talk about the character of Chifiwa. I mean, this guy is you know, is amazing. You know, he's one of this alpha macho, assertive guy. You know, very ambitious. I mean, he's very ambitious. There's nothing wrong with ambition, but he's overly ambitious. Like, he talks about, I want to be the next Motsepe. We are building the next R&B, the black R&B of this country, you know, and he's got this bravado and showmanship, you know. He's this guy who drops names. You know, we were with JT Ferreira in Stellenbosch, and you know, here I can show you here the pictures. So there's a lot of showmanship. And he also has this level of condescending about him, where he thinks, you know, this, I'm better than you guys. I mean, why would I want to do these things that you're saying I'm doing at VBS? I've got my own money. I have cars, I have houses. You know, I was rich before VBS, so I don't understand why you think my motive would be to do this. So he's got this, you know, condescending tone about him. And when they start asking him about what was happening in the bank, he starts saying, no, those guys are incompetent, you know, Andile is incompetent. He referring to his CEO, he's incompetent. I gave out instructions, they can't execute those instructions properly. They're incompetent. They don't know accounting. And at some point, when the investigators were investigating VBS and the lawyers are getting involved, I mean, there's Advocate Terry Motaung's report that lawyers are getting involved. No, those guys are not accountants. They don't know anything about accounting. They're just lawyers. So he's got this, I'm better, I know better. These guys are not smart, you know. This is just a simple accounting transaction. There's a debit, there's a credit. I can show them where the other legs to these transactions are, you know. So he's got this condescending tone about him. But also, he tends to be very philosophical, you know. I mean, apparently he was a pastor. I read somewhere that he was a pastor. So he's got this, he tends to be philosophical about things, you know, and this type of characters, they like quoting the Bible, you know, and, you know, radical economic transformation. We need to build our own banks. It's for our own future legacy, our kids, what. So they tend to be very, very philosophical. But also, lastly, they don't take responsibility. I mean, he doesn't take responsibility. He blames everyone else. It's Andy, he's incompetent. It's the executive team, it's incompetent. No, man, leave Sipho Mabala, the auditor. No, leave him alone. Blah, 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 blah. So it's everyone else's fault. It's not his fault, right? And, you know, I mean, this character, you know, alpha macho, assertive, bravado, showmanship. If it goes well, you are going to have people like Steve Jobs, because they also have those traits. You're going to have people like Steve Jobs, even though Steve Jobs at some point he was fired. You're going to have people like Elon Musk. You're going to have people like Jeff Bezos, right? But if it goes bad, right, you're going to have people like Jeff Levinson of Regal Bank. You're going to have Benny Madoff. You're going to have Marcus Joster of Steinhoff. We're going to have Adam Newman of WeWork, Sepp Blatter of FIFA, you know. And it's this type of characters, the showmanship, the bravado, the ambitious, you guys are playing, you're not as ambitious as I am, type of a thing. And yeah, you know, I found he's accused number one. Of course, Andy, the CEO, he's denying everything. He says, I didn't know this, I'm not so sure, it might have, it might not have, I'm not so sure. So he's denying everything. Others have confessed. But Chifiwa is, you know, for me, I found it, because he was the serious protagonist in the whole thing. I found him to be very interesting as a character. You know, he's got this, and he's not shy to boast. I'm doing this. We are building this black R&B. We have financial services. We have insurance. We have this. We are building this empire. Right, support us. It's good because it's good for Black people, economic transformation. I mean, I remember he sends a letter before they get curated. He sends a letter accusing the Register of Banks, accusing National Treasury, that you guys, you talk big about economic transformation, building Black businesses, but here we are, we come and we say support us. Instead of supporting us, you are now, you know, declaring us bankrupt and what. So he's got this psychology, philosophical thing that he plays on, but and those are the characters that you're dealing with. So yeah, I found it to be quite interesting. So that's a long-winded summary of the book. I hope those who have not read it, it makes a lot of sense to you. Yeah, that's for me. Quite an interesting book. It reads like a novel. True story. It reads like a novel. Very hilarious. There are instances where the mayor of Vembe says, "No, guys, I need money for Christmas. Where's my Christmas?" Meaning that she wants a bribe, and she's complaining to say, no, you guys are giving me little money. You're giving my law officials millions. You're only giving me 300,000. No. And when you read another report, and there was some funny instance where one of the comrades was complaining that, no, you guys, was complaining that they're giving him little money. And he says, no, you guys are giving me a can. I'm having a can here. And you give others the real Coke. I want the real Coke. You're only giving me a can. So I found that to be, you listen to politicians, they have a very funny way of conversing. So that's VBS, Dream Defrauded. So sad, very sad story. It's a continuing case at the moment. So yeah, that's my take and my summary. Mali?
Dr. Rush, yeah, you put it, it was as if I was listening to a movie. Like I read the book. I read the book, and the way you put it, you actually summarized it quite well. But I actually want to mention how, just to add to what you're saying, just in the beginning of this whole book, how they even get the shares for VBS, where they didn't even pay for those shares into VBS. Just from get-go, you could see that this is not a place, the people that are running this, and especially from Chifua's point of view, where from his point of view, he wanted to do, like you're saying, he's overly ambitious, right? But it almost as if this person is overly ambitious without actually wanting to do the work. He wants a shortcut through whatever they're doing, through VBS to get to this Black-owned everything. And the biggest problem I had already from get-go was the fact that these guys, as I was saying, go into a place where they think they own everything. First of all, look, for me, it's crazy the amount of effort people put in to stealing. If you could just turn that effort into legitimate work, you could do so much more, right? But the amount of effort they do and the amount of risk that they take just to get into a place or into the room almost is almost not worth it afterwards. But whilst they're in it, for them, it's fine. They've convinced themselves that what we are doing is good because we are building things for our Black nations. There's too many times that these white guys or these whatever have taken, these Europeans, have taken our food. Now we want to take it back, but I'm not willing to do the work. I'm willing to steal it and do the work through the money that I got. And the funny thing is, there was a point where in the book where they were talking about, I think it was Chifua's partner from the telecom, the one where they had the other thing with, where he talks, Chifua was talking to him, and he speaks, Chifua says, once we can get a hold of this bank, it'll be like our own piggy bank, in a way. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what you're saying, is that we've got the money. Now, with this money, we can actually grow this bank like ridiculously and what. But it's almost as if, as they were doing this, they never did their due diligence. They didn't do a lot of the work that they needed to do to get a legitimate bank. Like you're saying now, when they were, as they were taking money from municipalities and everything else, in my head, they could have just went further into developing this bank into a bank that can do that. Yes, it'll be longer. Nothing just happens over. Rome wasn't built in one day kind of situation. And they thought to themselves that, you know what, we're taking this bank and we're going skyrocket. The things that they started investing in, Dr. Rush, was ridiculous. You know what I mean? At a stage, I think it was chapter 4, where they went into the church, I forgot the church name. And they started going into that church and wanting to build a bank for the church, and nothing that has to do with the church at all. And they wanted to do all these products and everything else. And you almost like, but guys, that's not what the church is supposed to be doing. That's not what, you know what I mean? That's not, stick to what you know, let other people stick to what they know. Yes, we're not saying that don't go to the church and help them out and get people to invest and whatever. No, that's a different story. But don't go in with wanting to make a whole production about this one church and you think even everyone is going to go on board. I mean, first and foremost, just the fact that you're saying we're going to go into the church and we're going to, all these members are going to have cards and everything else. Who's to say that those members are going to want to have a card? Who's to say that the banks, those people in the church actually trust their pastor enough to say, you know what, we're going to give our money into this whatever, you know what I mean? Because if it was that way, then they would have done it already. So a lot of what they did was ambitious without going into even, I mean, I didn't even hear a part in most of this where market research was done about what they wanted to invest in. It was just, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But wait, before you do that, do you understand what the cost of doing that is? Do you understand what it means to do that? And look, I'm not accountant, I'm not a CA or anything, but there's just things that are just common sense, right? As much as you were saying now, where he says, I mean, there's it's basic accounting. First and foremost, if it's basic accounting, but you as a chairman couldn't even go and navigate this basic accounting for your whole organization. And now you're coming and blaming other people. Dr. Ross, I was so mad. I was so mad at the level of I was at the level of what's the word I'm looking for? At the mismanagement. I mean, it was clear from get-go. I could just see, wait, what did these guys just do? No ways. So for me, it was around that to say, first and foremost, the mismanagement was like clear as day, clear. People, you're giving people a loan for 2 million for houses. It was like 2 million was just being handed over like it's nothing. Just people getting 2 millions here, 4 millions there. And I'm just like, okay, but with it actually, in a sense, reminds me of, I'm sure you've seen that movie, The Big Short, with 2008 housing market falling. It was like that, except at I guess it was a smaller scale, but with bigger numbers in a sense, where they were just dishing out money just like that. And I mean, I'll go back, for instance, to the vendor king as well, how in his mind, he let these things roll over as well. He let Chifua do what he needed to do. Just too many times they came to him and they asked him, no, but this guy is out of order and everything. I was like, no, just leave him alone. And now you almost take a king. I mean, this is supposed to be a king. You're almost taking a king and you're making this, and the decisions he's making as a king is not for society, but to get him to look like a king instead of being a king. You know, it's almost as if leadership is dictatorship instead of leadership being leading people and serving the people. And I was just like, no, but this is ridiculous. And I just like how the initial investors, not Kunje, what is the name of the other group before? It was the PIC and this other investment, the other guys that they got money from. And I like the fact that as soon as all of these things started, I think it was in 2016, where things just started unraveling and just getting too much, they were like, you know what, I'm out of this. I see what you guys are trying to do, but no, I'm good. I just can't, because he knew, and that's someone that is legitimate, where he can see something that's going to grow. I mean, I'm sure there's many people, I'm 100% sure these banks, they're probably stealing just as much as what these guys are doing, but they're doing it in a way where no one can even see it, you know, where it's so marginal that you can't see it. But now these guys want to do a whole 20 million disappearing in a day, or a whole, I mean, even PIC, the way they did it. I mean, how strange would it be to just give 100 million rand, 100 million rand, and you can't even account for it? Like, who what? And I'm just like, no, it's like, these things are they should have been, I mean, just that alone, the 100 million rand and the papers not be, that alone should have been a red flag I mean, this was 2017. It was a big red flag already from that 100 million rand with the fuel thing where no one can account for it.
Yes.
That already should have been investigated, first of all, by PIC. There's so many things that were red flags. I mean, 100 million is not just a small amount of money. No, it's big. Like, it's not like me taking 10 rand from my mom's purse and thinking, no, that's 100 million. Like, you feel it when it goes out of your bank account into someone else's. So if for them to say they were not able to, like, no one was able to account for it, I really don't understand. So for me, this whole book was a, how can I put it? For me, it was more of a realization on how people want to take shortcuts to reform society. And sometimes, and it's one of the, I think of this thing where people say, you do not know yourself. I mean, your character is shown at your poorest and at your most richest, and how these guys took it upon themselves to take the riches and think, no, I'll be fine, I'm going to do this reformation. And actually they couldn't handle the amount of riches that came in. I mean, just it's amazing how you say this guy was Chivo was quoting the Bible and everything else, and he knows that money that came, it says it even in Proverbs that the money that was brought in easily will go out easily. You know what I mean? I mean, that's principle, right? And how even him, he was like, I know I can get over this, or I can, and clearly he couldn't. And I mean, things, he got swept through up up his feet. And yes, it's like I said, I was just a bit too mad sometimes. At a stage, I had to leave the book and just like, guys, I was, Dr. Rush, I was like, if this is just this bank, this small bank in South Africa, if we were to hear the scandals of South Africans in general and the politics and everything else, now a lot of us will fall off our chairs. But yeah, no, it was an interesting book. It really. Last thing I actually want to say is there's something you put on LinkedIn the other day. I think I liked it and shared it. But you said go into business with like-minded people, I think, or something like that, or people who say yes. And I thought to myself, with the values, yes. I thought to myself, I mean, from get-go, Chifua's partner, he could see these things, and he could see that that's not the right values for me. And yet he still went in there. Yes, he wouldn't have known and everything else, but your friends. There's certain friends of mine that I know I'll never go to business with, because you just know them. I'll keep them as my friends, but there's just no way I'm going into it with them. So for me, with him, with him as well, is that he put himself into that position where his friend was saying, let's go take over. But you could see that, nah, man, this guy's a bit shady. And he still went on to say, maybe he will change, or whatever his reasoning was. But yeah, it was quite interesting.
In his defense, though, he did pull out. I think when the whole thing started going south, he was like, I'm out of here. But you're right. He should have just said, I'm not getting involved. But I think the opportunity was quite lucrative to say no to. But at the same time, it was just a question of Chifua outsmarted him, because Chifua went to the king, and he went to the king. And the reason why you say the king was defending him is because the king was getting some money. And, well, of course, there were about 7 accounts that the king had. They had Royal 1, Royal 2, Royal 3, Royal 4, about Royal 6 or Royal 7, and all these accounts for the king. And he's got loans in there and whatever. So, maybe the king was also captured, and he was smart. I mean, he was capturing everybody. But yeah, it's quite frustrating. I also was upset. I struggled with this book because I was upset. I was like, no, I put it down. I was like, no, man, this is ridiculous. Then I had to pluck the courage to just finish it once off. But thanks for that, Mali. Anyone else who wants to go and give it a shot Mfuneni, I know you said you have not read the book, but I mean, this is in your hometown. What was it like? What was it like when this whole thing unfolded?
Well, thanks, Doc. And I think Masilela, when you were talking, I was laughing because I grew up with Manda. We went to the same school, high school.
Oh, wow.
Passed together matric. So, and I'm familiar with, some of the people, even though I haven't read the book, but when you were, talking, I mean, I could relate. I know Shifiwa as well.
Okay. Interesting.
So yeah, it's the whole story about VBS is just disturbing because I know that my mom invested some money in there as well, and then when it happened, she started getting sick. And even today, she's diabetic because of that. So
oh no, man.
Yeah, it was bad. The good thing is when she got sick, we took her up here, and then when they were claiming money, we immediately went to Nedbank, and then we managed to get our money. So yeah, but on the other side, the characters that you portrayed, I mean, these are the people that it's exactly what you're saying. I think Manda he's more principled.
Yes.
And maybe a story short, I once went to a party when majority of of the shareholders of VBS were there, including the chief himself. And then the behavior of Shifiwa, it was not okay at all in that party. And he kept talking about, we are the first, Black people, to own a bank, such thing. And, some of the municipality managers, were talking about if you guys want to come and invest, there's opportunities for you and all that. And then when Manda stood up, he said that's not how he plays. And I was surprised, when he was talking about that. And later on, I realized that the reason why he was talking like that is because Shifiwa was talking as if they have all the monies and then they can do anything wherever they want. Because there was a project in the far north where one of the municipality manager was saying you need to come and invest there, then we'll give you opportunity, and tell us what you want, and we'll give it to you. And Shifiwa was on for it because I think he had already had contacts because he was going to use the VBS money in those projects. So yeah, I mean, these are the people that I know. And then I wanted to talk about church because I mean you mentioned the church. I know Manda, as I said, I grew up with him, we went to the same school. He was not staying far from me. So he grew up in a church, and his family, they had a church at his yard. And then Chifo as well, he grew up, similar like Manda. And then the reason why they started business together is because, yes, they went to school together, but the idea of starting the business, it started with Chifo and then Manda joining. So then they were good friends, and they had they were like thinking along. They were thinking the same thing. They wanted to change the way things are, and during that time, I think it was okay, for them to work together. And then Manda dropped out. I know that he didn't complete, but Chifu, I know he finished his schooling. So I think because of how they started, I think Manda, had to stick in until he gets to a point where he was like, I can't take this anymore, and I can't tolerate this guy, the behavior of this guy. And then I think I had contact with them together, I think 6 or 7 times, where they were having a party, but he was not happy with how Chifiwa was behaving himself. in some of the parties where they were there together. And Manda will avoid to be with him in many instances. Yeah. So yeah, these are the people that I know of, and the story of VBS. I can relate with a lot of things. And when I was young, I remember I used to go in there and in bank. We used to have a those things that they used to use at the bank, at the post office, the
Yes.
small booklet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's how they'll go and write your money in there, and then they'll show the deductions every time when you go and deposit. So
yes,
I
remember. Oh, I remember those. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. So, but how was the whole thing received in Venda generally? I mean, when ultimately, but even before the bank was collapsed, but when these guys were living large, and was it something that people were celebrating, or was it some concern?
You know what? I know that because I'm very close with Manda, so I didn't follow Chifua's story until the story came out that there's something wrong with VBS. But I remember Manda used to complain about what's happening there, and then what could happen. But before then, I think VBS was used by many people because it was the only, vendor bank. And then people were very proud about, having a bank in Venda and owned by vendor people, and as you said, the Stockfells, the, what do you call it? This under tree funeral arrangements,
Yes.
they used to go and deposit their money there. And a lot of them never got their money back because remember, majority of them were residing in that small area. So they will go to the bank, and then even if they wanted like 10,000, then they couldn't get it because there was no money in the bank. The fortunate people were the ones who went to like my mom, for example. She was in Joburg, so we managed to go to Net Bank and then withdraw I think almost 60,000 names in there, so and then you could imagine 60,000 names for my mother, who's now 92 years old. It's a lot of money because she put that money for a very long time, so, and imagine other people like hey, who even today have not received their cash. So people were not happy at all. And there were other people who were also involved. Some of them were trying to clear their names, but people were very upset, and the fact that the bank was closed, that people were not happy with it because they still wanted the bank. Even today, people, if the bank can reopen, people will still go and invest because that is the bank that they know for a very long time, that used to service them without any issues.
Sure, because right at the beginning of the book, there's a guy, he talks about, just on the introduction, I was there from day one when it was formed. That is why it pains me so much. I know how it was formed and why it was formed, why we formed it. These people don't care about the objectives we have had when we formed this bank. That was to help poor people to be able to bank and also borrow money to build houses where other banks won't. And this is what Madambi Muvulawa, one of the
shareholders, yes. I know the guy because a friend of mine's father was a shareholder as well. They started the bank by the then, vendor government. So these people, they started a bank, they started a furniture shop where they sell, furniture beds and wardrobes and everything. So they used to make these things themselves and then deposit money into the bank. So that was the people. Then they started, other businesses like garage, milling, grind milling, and they had farms. So that's the reason why they started the bank, is because they wanted a bank where they will do these businesses and then go and deposit money in that bank.
Sure.
So that's why I mean, like Mumura was, I mean, he was, yeah, I mean, when he speaks about that bank, you know, you can feel the pain that he has, because they had purpose, you know, for that bank, you know, to be there.
Sure. Thanks for that. Anyone else comments? Maybe thanks for coming. This is adding a different flavor to it. Thanks so much, Funeni, for coming through. And I hope this is not the last time I see you here.
No,
please.
No.
Thanks. Anyone else? Shama, what's up? Lodo. Anyone else? Thoughts, comments? Even if it's not the book, but I mean, maybe you might know some of these guys. Maybe you went to school with some of these guys, or maybe you have encountered them in a boardroom. I don't know. Anyone else? Shama, are you good?
I'm here. I'm just, you know me, I'm always like 3 books behind the current book. So, but this is like really fascinating. I'm like, what? How does this happen? And I even commented to say it must be part of the case study for the assignment, actually.
Yeah, you guys don't want to do my assignments. No, I thought. Yeah, no, you're right.
It's a fascinating story. I mean, it's, for me, figures that don't make sense. Like, how do you play around with money like that? Like that amount of money. Where do you think you're going to get it? You know, so it's one of those things for me that just amazing. Like, I'm jaw on the floor, literally just hearing your review and the other gentleman, I forgot his name. And yeah, I'm definitely going to get it. You know, I order them and they queue until I'll get to it. Yeah,
but they're at the bottom. Don't worry. They're completing those slips at the border, so they'll be there very soon. Thanks, Shama. Matsepo, do you know these characters? Have you met them? Have you? I mean, you were working at Treasury at some point. You know, does this add up?
So I mean, yeah, I'm glad I don't know them, because I think I would, you know, I would feel very bad for knowing them. So I'm glad I don't know them, and it reads like fiction. I mean, I'm not saying that I didn't enjoy your review of the book, but I think Malisela did a good a proper review. Like I wouldn't read it, because I think I would also just be very angry. But I think based on the stuff that you know, how he explained it, and he's like, 100 million rands, like, do you understand what is 100 million? I think I need to read this for myself, you know. But I think it's sad. I think it's sad for us as a people, that even when you then have this vision where you are just like, we need to have our own bank, we need to have our own whatever, systems, mines, manufacturing, industrialists, whatever. It seems like we go and just mess it up. You know, you give our people the opportunity, and then those people that get the opportunity, unfortunately, becomes the wrong people. Because I'm clear, there's a lot of us who could have gone in and run the bank and made it successful. But I think I'm just sad that the ones who actually get to make it out there are the ones that then mess it up, you know? So I think it's a sad book to read. I mean, I wouldn't want to go on holiday and read this book. I think I would just be angry at everyone.
Yeah, it's upsetting. It's very upsetting. I think I put it down 3 or 4 times. Usually I would read books. If it's quite a good book, I'll go with it until I'm finished. This one, I had to put it, it's upsetting. I was so upset. I mean, this guy's, the amount of money, I mean, it's ridiculous. And the lies also, it's crazy. I mean, at some point, Andile gets 15 million for something that he negotiated, and he gets paid 15 million. So the investigators are asking him, you know, so he says, no, this was for services rendered for the bank. And the bank was paying him 15 million. And they said, but according to your employment contract, you are not allowed to do side hustle businesses on behalf of the bank because you are a CEO, you are withdrawing a salary from the bank that you are leading. So you can't then go and do side hustles on behalf of the bank and then get a commission for the bank. And he says, classic, he says, no. The contract that you guys were looking is an old one. There's a revised contract that says I can do that. Where's the contract? He doesn't produce the contract. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm like, this guy, are you serious? And he says, no, there's another contract. They said, no, but we have a employment contract here. It says you can't do that. He says, no, there's another contract that says I can do that. They say, finishes up with that contract. He says, he hasn't even done that even. You know, it's upsetting. It's yeah, but you know, I think it reminds me of this type of stories. I mean, this is my third book that I'm reading of this type of stories. Hopefully next year we can do Steinhoff, because I know there's a book on Steinhoff as well. But if you look at the magnitude, even though I'm not condoning. I mean, if you look at the magnitude, Steinhoff makes the Steinhoff scandal. I mean, it's the biggest corporate scandal in the history of South Africa, right? It makes VBS looks like a Sunday picnic, you know. But of course, it's people's livelihoods that are destroyed, people's savings, people's salaries at the bank, at the municipalities. You know, municipalities had to, they had to lose money because these guys spent the money. Some companies that had invested in VBS, because they can't get the money out, they had to now also go bankrupt as well. People's livelihoods. I mean, there was also this patriarchy that came through, because as VBS is buying some of these businesses, and like Mali was saying, they don't even do due diligence. They just get in there because they have money. We have 50 million, boom, here's the money, we take control. And then so they were buying this stake in another business where the CEO was a lady, and part of their philosophy thinking is no. We are not going to allow a lady to be the CEO of the company. Once we buy this company, the lady CEO has to go. And obviously they negotiate an exit package. They pay her 1 million just to walk away, and then they'll put in and the reason they say is no, the king does not allow women to run their organization. So, you know, I'm not vendor, so I don't know the intricacies of that, if that's true or not. But what's interesting though is the current king, because the king also lost the case because he was not the rightful heir to the throne. He was the nephew to the king who deceased, and the king had a daughter, and I think there was a case there, and obviously the Supreme Court found that actually the reason why he's king is because they didn't want to put the lady as a king because she's a woman. So something to that effect. I was like, okay, that's quite strange, you know. But he has subsequently lost the case, so he's no longer the king. I forgot the new king. Obviously, Mfuneni will let us know. But yeah, and the reason why I wanted to read this book is a reminder. It's a reminder for us as well. And I think Mali said that sometimes we think we have morals, we think we have principles until lots and lots of money comes in. And actually, money reveals our true character. You know, they say you can't say you are humble when you are poor, right? Because poverty makes you humble. You don't have a choice. It makes you humble. So you can't say, you know, I'm so humble. No, circumstances make you humble. But it's when you have lots. Yes, ma'am.
There's a question that's come in. It's in the chat. just in line with what you're saying now. So maybe have a look at it and then do a full circle response.
Okay. Which chat?
Okay, let me read it in the Facebook page. Let me read the question for you. Please link the VBS saga with as from an entrepreneurship context with cash flow, integrity, and the founder's dilemma.
Sure. I'm hoping the guys will also assist. I mean, understanding the business model of a bank, the bank makes money from the loans they give out. So the loans that the bank gives out is actually their assets. So they make money from that. And then their expenses would be the interest they pay on the depositors' money. And then, so that's a basic business model of a bank. So it's interest in, interest out. Interest in because we have given somebody a loan, either a credit card, a mortgage, a car finance, or whatever. So we make money from that. And then we pay out on the depositors' money. So when you deposit money and you fix it, whatever, we give you an interest that you're going to pay on the investment. So the idea is that the money, the interest that comes in has to be higher than the interest that we pay out. So as we charge your credit card or your overdraft or whatever, that interest has to be higher than the interest that we pay for an investment. So that's a basic business model. But also what banks also do, because they are cash flushed, so they take the money and they invest it in other businesses, or they invest it in property or whatever, and those investments also gives them money. So they're able to make more money over and above your loan or the credit card that you took. So that's the basic business model of a bank. So what then happens is, if people put money into a bank, for instance, and the bank uses the money, so they uses the money, maybe they give out a loan to Mfuneni and whoever, so, and with the intention that Mfuneni will repay the loan. But what should it happen that all of us decide that, you know what, we want our money back, and which is what happened with Sambo in 2012. We want our 2002. We want our money back. All of us, we go to the bank and we withdraw. They call it a run-in. So it's like suddenly the bank, because the bank doesn't have enough cash with them in the premises, they've invested in other things. Then you'll find that the bank does not have enough liquid cash, and therefore, based on that principle, the bank collapses. So what then happens? What the Reserve Bank will then want to do is they will say the bank needs to have 30 million or whatever in terms of safety money that they put aside, just put aside for instances where depositor will say we all want our money back at the same time, and then the bank should not collapse. They can then go to the Reserve Bank and go into the kitty and pay out the depositors' monies. But what then happens, because it's an integrity thing, it's a trust thing. I need to trust the CEO of the organization that they will not chow the money. I mean, one of the biggest, and it might be a bit controversial. One of the biggest thing that comes out is people will say, yeah, but Dewald van Rensburg, one of the ministers of finance for 4 days, was more qualified than everyone else. So I don't understand why you didn't put him there as the Minister of Finance. He was even more qualified. He had more qualifications. What people don't understand, it's not about qualification, it's about trust, right? You can have 100% qualifications and zero trust. You can't run a bank, Of course, skills are important, but also integrity, trust, are equally important. And that's why, they brought in somebody who had less qualifications than Dewald van Rensburg, but the markets did not panic because they trust this person. And that's what is important when it comes to money, dealing with banks, dealing with money. The trust is important. I read a book by Alan Greenspan a long time ago, and he says in there, and Tito Mboweni was quoting him as well, when he was appointed the governor of the Reserve Bank for the first time. And he says, governor of the Reserve Bank says, one of two things that you must do as a governor of the Reserve Bank. And at the time, Greenspan was the Reserve Bank governor of all Reserve Bank governors all over the world. And what Greenspan was saying is two things that you need to do as a governor of the Reserve Bank: buy a conservative dark suit and stay away from the media, right? That's all he says. In other words, what he's saying is, as a banker, you need to be conservative. You need to be very conservative. You need to be prudent. You shouldn't be out there flashy and all those things, because you are dealing with a safe, a vault with lots of money. And if your character is this showmanship type of a person, and you have keys to the community chest, it's a matter of time that this showmanship will require you or will tempt you to go to the vault and open and take the money out. So he was saying that you need to be conservative, stay away from the media, and be as conservative as possible. Don't make headlines unnecessary. This is not, I mean, sometimes people, our governor, Tito, wouldn't be doing this fish thing when he was governor of the Reserve Bank on social media, and that's why even our current governor is not a limelight type of a person, because you are dealing with people's money. You need to manage your reputation. It's very important, but also you should not be somebody who is this, extravagant and showmanship and out there and whatever, because that is going to lead to other things that might actually tempt you to go and take money from the kitty. So whether a startup, I think the rules are the same. When you're starting up and there are other people's money involved, integrity is very, very important. Trust is also very important. I hope I've answered. It's a long-winded answer, but yeah.
Can I also just add to that, Dr. Rush?
Yeah.
Actually, I like what you're saying now, and I think it comes back to the fact that people wanted the easy way as well. Again, I remember reading this book. I forgot the name of the book. I forgot the name now. But how they were speaking in that book is you need to do. When you're a startup, especially, you need to do work. Oh, it's actually not a book. It's actually one of those Y Combinator videos I've seen on YouTube. And one of the guys was speaking on how when you're doing a startup, and obviously this is within a startup sense, when you're starting a startup, you have to do things that do not scale, meaning you have to do the nitty-gritties, what's this? You have to do the basics, the mundane things very well, so that when you build on that, you're building on solid ground. The problem comes when you want to already build a platform. Maybe you have a great idea. You build this platform that you want it already to scale, but you haven't even tested it out with the market. And I think maybe it ties back with, again, the VBS thing to say, maybe these guys, they were not necessarily, again, ambition is ambition. It's fine. Everyone should have ambition. But the scale at which you want to execute the ambitions that you have should be calculated risks, especially when it comes to a bank, because as you say, you're dealing with people's livelihoods. I mean, we cannot sit back and say, oh no, money is not important. No, money is really important. If you say money is not important, go for a month without getting a salary and having no food and tell me money is not important. So that's the thing, especially with that sense where you deal with the one thing that a lot of people take to heart, and if you're not dealing with it with caution and with with care, it comes down to a place where you're having 800 million that you need to give to municipalities that you can't take back. For people, I can imagine if Prasa had said yes, what could have happened then? Like it would have been a mess. And that's the thing, is that you now have this arrogance to say, no, we can do it again, we're not caught, and it becomes a problem.
Lolo, your last words? I hope we have answered your last words, thoughts. Thanks, Mali.
Already answered. No comment yet.
Oh, okay. All right. I think we have run out of time. We have actually run out of time, but yeah, would I recommend this book? Definitely, I would recommend this book. I think it's, it's one of those books that will sober you up, and it will make you realize that, it's always, you need to be grounded. You need to always be grounded and no shortcuts. It's the same advice, It's the same advice. Listen to advice from others. Ego is the enemy. It's the same advice. But I think what this shows is what the damage that ego can do. And once in a while, I read this type of books because they bring you back. And I think you are also able to pick up, because you're also able to pick up similar patterns in other people around you. People who are grandstanding, showmanship. You're able to say, that something is not adding up here. And yeah, I found that to be quite fascinating. Mali, your last words before we close?
Yeah, I think the last words from me is, first of all, it makes me sad to, obviously, again, like you're saying now, where things like this happen. It paints, I think it was, I'm not sure who it was that said it, but it paints a bad picture for Black people wanting to go into banking. I mean, first and foremost, it doesn't mean if we're Black, we're less intelligent than white people. No, not at all. In fact, we're probably more intelligent in any case, But the thing is, because of the few that make a bad rep for the entire, that represent us as Black people, it becomes a problem, because now when you want to, if you want to be ambitious to say, I have an idea for a bank, you're almost not taken serious because of VBS guys, you know what I mean? I think there's a lady now that started a bank, the first woman to start a bank in South Africa. Yes, and now it doesn't mean I was talking to someone, in fact, a few weeks back, and the lady that I was talking to was like, look, I feel like this bank is also going to be like a VBS, which is not, it doesn't mean it's going to be like another VBS, but it was sad for another Black lady to say, you know what, this is probably going to fail and end up the same way as VBS did. I mean, now they were on that rally, I think on from the 1st of June to the 30th, this lady on getting money for the bank, starting up with the bank, going out to the communities and everything else. And now you come across a story like VBS where people are just like, nah, I don't even trust you. What's your plan? Like, what's your plan with this bank? So it paints a really bad picture, but I really think that and integrity is probably one, and especially when it comes to banking, I think, or in fact, anything, but banking most especially, integrity is really needed in that. For someone to just say, I guess I'm starting a bank without us even knowing what kind of bank you're doing, what's your plan, what's, as shareholders, I guess, then it's going to be very hard to win people over, especially after the scandals like VBS.
Yeah, you're right. I think it's sort of taking a lot of those who want to get into the space, it's sort of taking them backwards, so to speak. But people are emotional about their money. So they don't want to, when it comes to money, you'll fight with people. But yeah, integrity, absolutely important. Thanks, Mali. Mfuneni? No, wait, not Mfuneni. Matsepo? I'll come to you, Mfuneni. Matsepo, last words?
So I just remembered that I know one of the guys' wives. And okay. I just remember, but I think it makes me feel better, because I used to then, look at them and they would be driving all these incredible, amazing cars and living up this life. And I used to then sit and wonder, how, Mara, I mean, this person, I know that this is what she does, and I know that this is what the husband does. And the numbers didn't make sense. So I guess it makes me feel better to know they were living on stolen money, and I kept it honest. So I mean, yeah, I agree, Jorge. It's such a pity that the ones that get to make it out are the ones that then misrepresent us as a people. So we possibly, this what this does is that it puts pressure, or rather it should put pressure on Ntabeleng to ensure that she doesn't let her bank go in the same vein. And I mean, I think it's my hope and my prayer, especially now that she's renamed the bank to her name. I hope and pray that she would, show the world, or just even South Africans, that there is a remnant that actually can represent the Black nation very well. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Munyai.
Thanks, Doc. For me, it pains a lot, to see something of a good cause, to just become obsolete because of our decisions. And also, of late, there's a lot of talks about institutions that we start as Black people, that we can't even run them. And this kind of stories, conform to that. And then I think we need to learn from there and say, this is not us. This is not how we do things. We can, start institutions that can last forever. And then that can be run by, people with integrity. Yeah, and I think we have good people. That's what I know. We have good people out there who can do better jobs.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Munyai. Lolo, any thoughts before we close?
Yeah, just on top of what Mfuneni is saying, and I think what Malistela said, going forward, how does the next generation build from the legacy that has been built or tarnished by the VBSs? I mean, yes, I haven't read the book, but from just the narration and how Matsepo was explaining, it was upsetting her, these people, but why type of thing. To end it with a more positive note to say, but there are brilliant people out there. There are brilliant Black people wanting to do bigger and even better things, but unfortunately, the foundations they're building on is the very legacy that the likes of VBS have left. What advice would you give?
Me? Is it a question?
Yes, it's a question. It's a comment, question, outro.
Oh, okay.
Or anybody, really.
I think, it starts with the why, isn't it? It goes back to start with why. Why are you doing this? Are you doing it for the right reasons? Or are you doing it for, I think there's a pathology that we need to deal with somehow. Because when you read the book, actually, there's two ladies, white ladies. One, she's a CFO at Vembe district, who flatly refused to invest 100 million in VBS. She refused. And her bosses were saying, hey, we're not in. She said, I am not, these guys are not qualified. It got to a point where they're saying she's a problem because she's a racist. She doesn't want to invest in Black businesses. And she says, no, but it's a principal issue. Another white lady, Koprasa, is the same thing. She also refused to say it's a principal issue. I don't know. I mean, it's an integrity thing. I think we're not having enough conversations about this. I think, to Matsepo's point, flashing showmanship has taken over as society. We tend to value, and Tabombeki gave a good speech about that. We tend to value people based on their material things and not based on their values. And it's as if you have more money, you are more successful, and therefore you are a better person than someone who doesn't have more money, but have very good principles. And I'm not saying that we should glorify poverty, but I think to a large extent, these things, if you look at where the money goes, it's material things. There's a guy, there are 6 days from closing the bank. He goes in there, he takes about 1.something million. What is he buying? Range Rover. 6 days before they close the bank, you steal money when you buy a Range Rover. So there's a pathology that some people really suffer from. And I think it's only visible when there's money. The true colors come out when there's money. But yes, there are absolutely quite a lot of people. And there's a guy who was at trading industry, Motana, Tidiso Motana. I mean, that's one of the great guys that we have had. The Sage and all these people, they're not flashy, they are not on the news, they are conservative, but they're doing amazing work. It's just that we want people who are on the news, who are flashy and trending. And so I think we need to go back and, you know, revisit. They're quite amazing. There are quite amazing people out there. Manisela, all these other people. There are quite a lot of amazing people out there, but because they're not flashy, they're not in the media, we don't think they are worth following. So maybe we need to start telling those stories. We need to start telling better stories of good guys who are doing amazing things. In the past few years, it's always been the flashy people who are making the news. Maybe the good guys don't make the news. Maybe that's how it's supposed to be. But I think we need to start amplifying the things that good people are doing and not glorify this crass materialism that we tend to focus on. So the role modeling, the stories, newspapers, and all those things. I hope I've answered. I mean, it's a caught me off guard. I mean, yeah, I was still upset by the book. So yeah, I think we need to come with better stories.
Thank you. One last question in the chat, in the chat in the room.
Yeah. How ruthless when it comes to duty? Are we? No, we are not. I mean, the guys were not doing duty. It's money. You have money. You see, the thing with money is because you have money, someone can come, something that costs 5 rand, right? If you don't have money, you'll negotiate it down, right? But if you have millions, something that costs 5 rand, you'll pay 10 or 15 rand. We don't do due diligence. Money is an emotion to a lot of us. It's an emotion. We become depressed, and if we don't have money, our mood swings are dependent on our bank balances at the end of the month. Even if you have food and a shelter over your head, but money is an emotion. So for a lot of people, if there's 1 million comes in, my voice rises. If I'm sitting with a group of friends and my SMS gets into my phone and there's 5 million into my account, suddenly my voice rises. I'm the one who's shouting the loudest. I'm telling how suddenly I'm paying for everybody. So money is an emotion. And until we deal with that thing, that money should not be an emotion, until we deal with that issue, we'll always, when money comes in, we'll always want to spend it because it's an emotion. And yes, they didn't do due diligence. In most of their investments, they did not do due diligence. They just spent. It was just spending spree. I mean, it gives, you know, the whole thing that money gives you too much money gives you itchy hands. So they were just having itchy hands. They were just spending. There was no due diligence. And yeah, should we consider a due diligence module? For sure, absolutely. I mean, after reading this book, I'm convinced that, and I don't know, after reading this book, I'm convinced that we need a course on money, and not just how to budget, just the psychology of money. I think we all suffer from the psychology of money. You know, we need to have that module, and I'm giving a course at one of the thing in a few months' time at Innovation Hub, and it's on costing. And before we talk about budgets and this, we need to talk about the psychology of money. We need to overcome that psychology of money. We have a brutal relationship, or a traumatic relationship with money as a people. So we need to have that. And we're not having this type of conversation. So I guess because it's, I don't know. I'm not a psychologist, but I just know that there's a psychology behind money. But yeah, thanks for the recommendation. Well, definitely there's that, but there's also the whole thing that we need to have due diligence modules also. So thanks for that. Each time a Black person makes it without knowing it, possibly without claiming it, they make it for all Black people, and the converse is true. Absolutely, absolutely. When Motsepe does very well, he does it for all of us. When VBS goes down, you know, it's representing us, and we need more stories. That's why Mfundini has to succeed. We need more of those because they are representing us. That's why Ntabeleng has to succeed, because she's not just doing it for himself, she's doing it for all of us. But, but also on the contrary, because they're doing it for us, it tends to be also very tricky, because they then use that to abuse. Guys, the next book, thank you so much. The next book, Subscribed, why the subscription model will be your company's future and what to do about it. So this is Mali's recommendation. Mali said, Amuna, you are sharing next session. I'll send out an email with the dates. Thank you so much. Yeah, there's an audio for those who are talking, audio, paperback for me doesn't work. There's an audio as well. So you can actually subscribe, Audible, Script, not subscribe, Script, Audible. I think they have the book. So you can, I don't know if it's on YouTube. Some of these books are on YouTube. So Subscribed is the next one. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much. I've taken too much of your time. Thank you, colleagues. Thanks for making time. Oh, sorry, Shama. Sorry, is Shama here? Shama, yes, before I forget you. Last words, then we go. Parting shot. Shama? Okay.
Oh, I'm here. No,
Yes.
I'm just still very shocked at how people can be ruthless like this with other people's money. Until then, I'll go and get the book. But it was a good session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. On that shocking note, thank you so much, colleagues, and have a good evening.
Thank you very much, Doc.
Thank you. Thank you so much.